Hello everyone, I want to do a follow-up to what we talked about in class, just to show you some of those things again and put it online so you guys can go back and look at it whenever you need it. Some of my goals are to set the diagnostics on so that we can see R squared, and also to show you a little bit about plotting, and there's even a few tips I forgot to mention in class, so if you listen through the whole video you might learn something even more. So first thing we need to do is a one-time thing we need to do on the calculator is turn the diagnostics on. So I'm going to press second and then 0, that's catalog, and what that does is that gives me all of the possible functions in the calculator. I'm then going to press, this button right here, D, and that skips down, and then you just scroll down until you get to diagnostic on. Just clicking it here doesn't actually set the diagnostics on, it just puts diagnostic on onto the main calculator. You actually have to press enter one more time and you should get a screen that looks like this, where it says done, like the calculator did something. Again, that's a one-time thing. Once you've done that on the calculator, unless you wipe the memory, the calculator should always show you the diagnostics. So let's get to the next part. This you will recognize as the table we worked with in class. What I did, I went ahead and put L1 as the X value in the test model A, and L2 here, L3 is my X, and L4 is my Y in that table. I actually didn't plug in L5 and L6 because I don't need to for the purposes of showing you guys how to change these, but you guys could do this. Same thing as we're doing with L3 and L4, and just plug in L3 and L5 and L6 later. So with all my data plugged in, what I'm next going to do is I'm going to go to Stat, over to the right to Calculate, and LinReg. And now I've got L1 and L2, that's my first function. What I want to do here is I want to store in the regression equation, I want to put Y1 right there, okay? Because if I can put Y1 right here, then it will copy that whole function over, and so I don't have to type it into the Y equals. So the way you find Y1 is I'm going to click on vars, and once I've clicked on vars, I get a screen that looks like this. This is the first screen. And then I'm going to go to the right to yvars, and I'll get a screen that looks like this. This is the second screen. And once I do that, if I press enter, I'll get a screen that looks like this, and you'll see all Y1 all the way through Y8 or Y10 or whatever the highest number is. And if I press enter on Y1, I get Y1 showing up where it will store the regression equation into Y1. So press enter, enter, and you get a diagnostic, you get a LinReg that should look something like this. This is actually my exact value for the L1 and L2 list, assuming I typed everything in correctly. Notice there's a really nice high R squared value, which means it's very close to, all the points are very close to the line. And the R value is negative, which means we have a negative association or a negative correlation coefficient. So as X increases, Y will decrease. Let me show you how to do that for list 3 and list 4 now. So you come back to Stat, Edit, and then go over to Calculate and go down to LinReg. And I'm going to set up the same thing, except instead of L1, when my cursor is there, I'm going to type in L3. You can find L3 by pressing second and then 3, because L3 is the blue above 3. Same with L4. Instead of L2, L4 is my Y value, so I'm going to press second, then 4. And coming back down to here, I'm going to find Y2 just in the exact same way I found Y1. I'm just going to go down 1 and hit enter. And this setup right here should be good for me to put that into these my second table to find linear regression and put that into Y2. So I do that, press enter, and I get that data. Now, another little feature I can show you real quick is how to plot the data. If you go to second Y equals, you get this screen right here that shows you all the different plots. And I just went into plot 1. First thing I want to do is I want to turn plot 1 on. And all the rest of this stuff, if you haven't messed with it, should be fine for plot 1. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to come up and go to plot 2 at the very top. You can also press second y equals and get at it by this one right here, plot 2. Either of those two are the same thing. They'll take you to the same screen. And when you get there, pretend that this is not plot 1, pretend this is plot 2. What I'm going to want to do is turn that on as well. And if I come here, my X list, I want to change that to L3. So in the same way as before, I'm going to press second 3. That gets me to L3. And then also with L4. One thing I can do here is the mark. This is what symbol is drawn whenever you make it. So right here, I'm going to change on my plot 2. I'm going to change that to this old plus here, so that plot 1 and plot 2 look a little different. Then I'm going to press zoom and go down to 9 because 9 is zoom stat, so it'll fit all my statistics nicely. It'll fit all the L1, L2, L3, and L4, or all the things that are plotted rather. And once I press that, you notice I get a nice graph where I have my points and they're somewhat close to my line. And so I showed this graph right here is actually a screenshot right before the second line is graphed, so you know that Y1 is graphed first. So if you're ever wondering which one is which graph is which, you can always see which one gets graphed first. Another nice feature on the calculator is if you hit enter as it's graphing, it will actually pause the graphing. You'll see this little thing in the top right that says the computer is working will actually go into kind of funny little pattern, and just press enter again to continue that back into its normal graphing mode. Oftentimes this feature is encountered accidentally. If you hit enter while it's graphing something and you complain because it won't work, it won't graph, well, that's often because you accidentally paused the graphing. So we have that. There's one other thing I want to show you. Oh yeah, if you press the trace button when they're fully graphed, so like on this screen right here, if I press trace, it would tell me in the top left, I believe, and you can toggle up and down to see which is Y1 and which is Y2. But yeah, just looking at this data, I can see right here that the pluses seem to be a lot closer to the line than the circles. I think the circles might be my Y2 data, and that'd be my second table, because those guys are well, there's some over here, but they're just not nearly as close as the red, as the plus data is. So this would be another descriptor, another way to identify which is the better correlation, which data has the better correlation. It should match up well with the correlation coefficient we got from earlier. All right, I hope that was helpful, and thank you for watching.